Well, I have 8:04. So, Lisa, why don't we jump in? I'll start by sharing some introductions and some housekeeping notes. My name is Jennifer Sullivan. I am the co-founder and memory maker with Encore Retreats. And this is my business partner, Lisa Waltuck, who is the co-founder and content creator of Encore Retreats. Lisa
Hi,
is
everybody.
also an oh, and I talk a lot. Lisa is also an empowerment coach, and she's wearing that hat tonight as she will be guiding us through the starting steps of designing your life and teaching you more about design thinking, which is really the foundation and the core of everything we do with Encore Retreats. So, again, a couple housekeeping notes. We encourage you to take notes tonight. So if you don't have a journal or something there to write with, you'll want to grab that. We are definitely encouraging interaction. As I said, we will be awarding a prize to the person who comments the most at the end of this session. We'll tell you a little bit more about that. So we can print out the chat and see who comments the most, and that's how we can tally who has been the most engaged in interacting with us, because we definitely want to hear from you guys. And Dee, I love that you love a challenge. That's awesome. We are going to be taking questions throughout the presentation as well, or Lisa will be. She'll be stopping at different points to ask questions. So you can either put them in the chat or you can put them in the Q&A, and I'll be kind of curating that for her as she's doing the presenting. We will be recording, or we are recording this session, so we'll be sending that out in the next few days as a follow-up as well. And that's when we'll also be announcing the winner of our, I don't know what we're calling it, our engaged participant competition. Lisa, anything else you want me to mention before I turn it over to you?
I think that's it. I think we're ready to roll. All right. So thank you for putting a few things in the chat that Jen recommended. I'm also going to ask one other question, which is, what is your kind of, as you're thinking about a change or anticipating your future, what's your attitude about that? So are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling like you have no idea what's next? If you have some emotion that you're feeling, just throw that in too, because that also is helpful. So this is a masterclass for people if you're thinking about a transition, a change, or a pivot. And it's most important to know where you are today in order to move forward with the design thinking process. So my intention in this masterclass is to help you lay the foundation for understanding who you are now through accessing, as we said, values and core convictions. I'll offer some sample exercises that you can dive into after class. We'll dip our toe into them a little bit just to get your mind thinking in that direction. And I'll give you a little bit more background on design thinking. So I am going to go right now into our plan for today. So I'm going to introduce the 5 mindsets. These are attitudes. I really think it is a shift in attitude. It is attitude that goes across all of the steps for design thinking. So especially if you're feeling stuck or unsure, it is a way to move you into a more open mindset that will allow things to happen to you. It's kind of priming you. That's the way I like to think about it. I'm also going to give you an introduction to 3 exercises that will let you get in touch with who you are now. And then we're going to do a series of other exercises to access your core values, your philosophy, your core convictions, just something to start you to thinking in those directions. Like I said, the mindsets really pervade the whole process. So because I'm a bit of a design geek, I just want to give you a little bit of a background quickly of design thinking. So it actually, the seeds of it really were planted way back in the late 19th and early 20th century with the rise of industrial design and the idea that form should follow function. So really putting the user at the center. And I think this continued in the mid 20th century with incorporating user needs. And we really saw a shift towards human-centered design practices. And then we're going to jump all the way to the 1980s and 90s, which is not so long ago, with IDEO, which is a design consultancy. And they really looked at sticky design problems, especially for products, with empathy and prototyping and collaboration. They tried a lot of stuff. And so that was a shift in how we approached design. And then in the late 2000s, we started applying some of this design thinking methodology to organizations and institutions to solve very complex problems. So that went into, education, it went into healthcare, it went into much bigger systems to solve them that made a better user experience. And then design thinking continued to evolve, especially out here in technology, because it became easy and cheap to iterate and change. So you've all heard of beta testing, you've all heard of kind of A and B. It was a way to put some technology out there. There might be bugs or whatever, but they would be out there. We would get user feedback and we would be able to change just by uploading a new version. That still exists today, but that idea of lean startup and agile really started here. And then finally at Stanford University, they have the design school, the D school. And Bill Burnett and Dave Evans were really teaching product design. But as they got deeper into design thinking, they realized there is a really true application to people's lives. There's a real parallel and a way we can make that work. And they outline that whole process in Design Your Life, which is the basis of a lot of the stuff that I'll be teaching, not today so much, but in our 8-week coaching course that I'll tell you about a little bit later. All right, so just to give you the broad view of design thinking, it's a cyclical process. So it is a problem-solving tool that takes you step by step, but you can kind of dip in and out at every section here. So we're going to start with empathizing, understanding your user's needs. In the case of yourself, you are the user. So that's what we're diving in today, how to understand yourself at this point better. Then we're going to define your problem. So we look at and that is a later step, but we look at your whole life and you will choose something that you very consciously want to work on. We ideate, which is we come up with many ideas about how to solve that problem. Then we experiment to see if those ideas work or not. And that is a time when these, especially experiment and evaluate, those two kind of spokes on this wheel we're constantly going over them, because you might try stuff, you might do a prototype, and it will either work or it won't. You'll evaluate it, and then you'll go back to the drawing board again. So it is just this full cycle. Today, we are solidly in the who are you section. All right. So I'm just going to reiterate today what we're doing, are there any questions that have come up, Jen?
You had asked a great question, Lisa. How are people feeling at this point? And
Yeah.
We've got overwhelmed. We're not sure if they're going in the right direction or how to get started. Not sure if this is a pivot or a total overhaul. Anxious. So all feelings that are very, very normal.
And also the perfect feelings to get into these exercises and this way of thinking. I think this is really going to help all of those kind of emotions. And I know those emotions are uncomfortable, but transitions are always a bit uncomfortable. So we're just going to do our best to acknowledge them, but also try and redirect your mind in a way that is very productive for you, and you'll feel like you're moving forward. So I'm going to, again, just to reiterate, we're going to do the 5 mindsets next, then we're going to go into some who are you exercises, and then finally about your core convictions. So for the 5 mindsets, as I said, these apply to all aspects of the design thinking process. So if you haven't thought about them before, they'll help you get your head into a new space. If you are stuck, if you are feeling overwhelmed, adopting these types of outlooks will really help you. And if you're aware of using any of these thoughts now, go ahead and throw them in the chat, because that would be helpful to know. So I'm going to start with curiosity. Curiosity is basically seeing opportunity everywhere. So if you're used to a particular routine that you have in your life, you can still continue that routine, but I call it keeping your antenna up. So just very consciously opening your mind to whatever crosses your path. So, you know, you could be at the grocery store and you could overhear a conversation that could be interesting to you, and you can ask a question. Or if you're feeling shy, you can go home and research that. So maybe they brought up some organization or some even vocation, anything that got you a little bit curious, it's worth diving into that. You can shake up your routine. So, you know, if you have just a way that you go about your day, or even certain routes that you take, if you change that, that is going to allow for additional information to come into your mind. And I want you to be receptive. The whole thing about curiosity is being very receptive. Allow for serendipity, allow for things to happen that you wouldn't really pursue. Just if a chance person comes into your life, a friend of a friend, you grab coffee, be a little curious, ask questions at every encounter, dive deeper. I say, be an investigator in all conversations. So as you are coming across people in your life, just go a little deeper. Just really say, I am going to be almost like a reporter here, and just, I want to see what could be out there for me. You can even think of some questions that you're contemplating right now, and maybe you have coffee with a friend or a teacher or mentor or something, and you can dive a little into that in a conversation. The second mindset is a bias to action. And this is basically getting in the game. So this is taking you out of the sitting at your desk alone in your house, reading a career book in bed. All of those things are okay. But what I really mean about bias to action is getting face to face. I want you to arrange some sort of meetup, whether it's a coffee date, an appointment, a Zoom meeting, something, ideally where you're actually physically sitting down with someone and you are connecting face to face. So maybe it's someone doing something that you've been interested in. Maybe it's a friend or a friend of a friend or a relative, or someone maybe you don't even know, but they have they're doing something that has sparked your curiosity and you want to sit down with them. So please sit down and let the conversation flow, ask a lot of questions, but allow them to see you for who you are and where you are now. If they connect with your curiosity, if they connect with your expressions, if they connect with your energy, your emotions, all of that is going to make them want to help you. So whether they're a conduit to something or they can introduce you to others, that is your goal. You want to be able to say, I love what you're doing. And that person says, oh, I have 3 people that you would really love to talk to that have made this transition that you're thinking of, or whatever it is. But the idea is, as much as you can, get some face-to-face time, I think. And always ask if there's other people, or if you can follow up with them later. So if you want to keep these conversations going. You could also do the same thing with a lifestyle. So maybe someone isn't doing exactly what you want to do, but you've just respected how they've organized their life, whether they're working 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, or 3 days a week, or they've transitioned to some more volunteering, or they've really made a big pivot. You want to know how and why they've done that. That will continue to give you information. And the other option is, or one of the other points here is, dive deeper into something that you've been interested in. I know a few people who were lawyers and they really loved the negotiation aspect, but there were a lot of other parts of that profession they did not enjoy. And both of them went back and did a mediation certification. And now that's what they're doing. They're mediators, but that they took the element of their profession that they really liked. They went a little deeper with a certification, and now that's what they're doing. So it's not a full-on pivot, but it's using something that they've done. Another person worked for a big consultancy for a long time. And then because she was interested, she got some pro bono work through that consultancy to work with their state education, and the state education department ultimately hired her. So she was able to transition in a way that was consistent with her values then. Her values changed. She really wanted to give back, and she had this opportunity. So there are ways to move within in a safer way if you don't want to take a huge risk. So you just have to decide kind of who you are, but those are all options there. The third mindset is reframing, and this is looking at life through a different lens. So we've all heard the, glass half empty, glass half full, optimist, pessimist mindsets. So I just want you to change your perspective. So whether you're turning a negative or a feeling of dread into a positive or being curious, that is looking through a different lens. So some examples might be, I just have no idea where to start. And maybe you can change that to, I'm going to make one small discovery today. Or you might feel like I have to find my next chapter, to the world is open to me. I can't wait to find what is around the corner. Another one, I'm going to think of my problem from the point of view of excitement. So if you are feeling drained and you want to just change your attitude for that day, what if you decide that everything you're going to do from that on that day is you're going to look for the excitement. You're going to feel excited. You're going to feel a healthy, happy sense of anticipation. You might have always played it safe. That's part of who you are. So maybe that day you decide today or this week is going to be a day of risk taking for me. I'm going to go a little bit out of my comfort zone. I'm going to call someone or email someone that I usually might be too shy to do. I'm just going to try it. So step a little bit out of your comfort zone. Or I've been feeling really badly about myself, and that is inhibiting me from going out and doing something. So I'm going to adopt the mindset of confidence today. All of these are techniques for reframing. So you can reframe your attitude. You can reframe, the negative thoughts in your head. So all of those things, I think, will help you shift how your mind is working. Then we're going to go on to the fourth mindset, which is awareness. Basically, this is knowing that this whole journey is a process. It takes time. It is not something that you're going to fix overnight. You are not going to make an immediate pivot. It is something that if you really want to get in touch with who you are and find the right thing, it's a pathway. So you may take a class, get a certification, which may lead to a volunteer role, which may get the attention of a fundraiser who loves what you're doing and wants you to lead the content part of that organization. Who knows? But it is going to take some time. Whether your certification course may take a few weeks, you may get a really interesting internship for a year. And all those connections is going to both inform you, and it is going to allow you to network and make other connections with people who may want to hire you or to have you do something for them. You will take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. You will go down a route and it will feel wrong. And that is information. You know that you got to some place that just doesn't feel right. And you will go back to the drawing board and take another path. That you are learning something about yourself. It is data that you can use to continue to make choices. So I want you to let go of the end goal and really enjoy the process, because this is fun and it is different. You are a different person than you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and 30 years ago. So really settle into who you are now. Let the opportunities come to you and move towards them, and try them in a way that is very informative, that is not superficial, that allows you to actually sink into this. Okay, I am going to go on to the fifth mindset, which is radical collaboration. This is allowing you to surround yourself with a team and ask for help. You are not alone. This is not really about the people that you're kind of asking for coffee dates and stuff. It is more of a supportive group. And you can assemble that group yourself. You can just say to a few chosen people, I'm going through this, and I want to have you by my side to ask questions and to challenge me. You can go into more of a formal group, which we're going to let you know about the end of this. You can assemble a group of friends who are all going through the same thing to support each other. This is not just about listening and support. It is also getting other people's points of view, and when it's appropriate, getting some challenge or some constructive feedback. So you want people that have different backgrounds, ideally different ages, different levels of experience, and they can all contribute to your journey or your collective journeys. So the act of designing always involves multiple people. When I'm on design teams, that's designer, art director, creative director, engineer, product manager, and then whatever specialty thing we're doing, architect or actor or writer, whatever it is, it always involves a team, because that way you get the best result, because you've thought of all the parts of the problem, and your life is a sticky problem. So you want people that have different points of view to chime in, to support you, but also to challenge you. All right, so if any of these really resonated with you, if you've done any of them, if you've done them successfully or unsuccessfully, because we get information there too, please put it into the chat, because we can just respond to some of these mindsets. And if this feels like a refreshing change for you, please let us know.
Lisa, we do have some questions.
Okay.
Monica says, curiosity sounds like fun, but I can imagine it would send you down many rabbit holes. How do we balance that with the need to focus? Seems like it could be super distracting.
That's a great point. I think that you have to trust yourself a little bit here. You can be a curious person, but you can have some notions in your head and follow those threads. So, I mean, we've all talked to those people that are great question askers in a conversation. And I specifically think of the ones that you don't feel like they're just asking the question for the sake of asking question. Asking a good question always leads to a great conversation. So I think it's having, you're not just diving in. And because I really don't want curiosity to be too much about researching on the internet, I really want it to be more about this face-to-face encounters. You're not going to go too deep. You're going to stick to something, and you can challenge yourself. This is who I am. I'm getting to know myself. This resonates and that doesn't. So be a little, allow yourself to rein yourself in a little bit, to have some parameters. You don't want to go wild, because that is going to be confusing. Give yourself a few parameters as you learn. We take people through this whole process to hone in on who they are. And then we develop 3 life action plans. So I'm not saying 50, I'm saying 3, and they have different goals for each one. So give yourself some guidelines to work within. Otherwise, it is going to be a bit of chaos.
Thank you. Svetlana says, seeing opportunities is easier in a stimulating urban environment than living in a suburban driving community.
I can see that, but I too, I am more of a city person, but I am living right now in a suburban community. And one thing I've noticed is, and I did take this out because it seems a little old school, but I've noticed that everywhere, whether it's in the library or in a main thoroughfare in town, or even a coffee shop, there are flyers and posters, and I always look at that, because there's always, classes to take or something to do. I don't know. I would imagine there's still more formal, organized activities that may be a little less serendipitous, but I bet if you kept So I was going to say, there may be things offered that you have to plan for, but I would also say, if you put your antenna up, if you allow yourself those opportunities to interact with people, like I said, even in the grocery store or at the farmer's market, or even on a walk on a trail, I've struck up conversations. Like, there are opportunities if you are open to them. So I'm just challenging you to be open to finding those wherever you are in your community. I promise you will.
Two more quick questions. I don't understand Lisa's phrase, your life is a sticky problem. What is sticky in the design thinking context?
So your life is a sticky problem because there are so many aspects to who you are. There's your personality, there's your likes and dislikes, there's your values, there's your goals and aspirations, there's your insecurities. There's so many things. A person is a complex being. So I mean, when I say sticky, I mean, it's not like an easy solution. Like maybe an easy solution is, for someone coming out of college who always wanted to be a designer and they got offered a design firm that was the perfect thing for them and they took it. Okay, that is a direct route. But I think at this point in our lives, we've lived long enough, we've tried enough stuff that there's things that are changing. Our mindsets are changing, our goals are changing, our lifestyle is a consideration that may not be the same parameter as I just need to make money doing what my major was. So your life is just broader, and there's a lot of things to take into account. And I would argue, if you really do take a holistic approach to finding your next step, with who you are, where you want to go, what you want to do, how you want your lifestyle to play out, that is a complex problem. But the upside is so fantastic to really get to a point where you have found your calling, you have found something that makes you want to engage in that activity every day with joy and meaning and purpose. That's what we're going for. So it's just not an easy fix. It requires time and investigation and self-awareness and trying things out.
Right. And that's what makes it fun, makes the process fun.
Exactly.
So last question, contacting someone about my own goals is not as easy as asking about or helping somebody else. Being an empty nester means that we are helping find jobs and internships for our kids, nephews, younger friends, empowering them. Is anyone else feeling this way?
I think that's a great point. But I would also say, if you can be in touch with who you are and what you want, you will be so much better of a guide for your kids or whoever, whoever you're mentoring. Like, if you're following some of these ideas, and you can pass those on to them, there'll be a synergistic interplay between both of you because you'll be looking and they're looking. So be on this journey together, adopt some of these processes. I think will help everybody.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we're just going to go on just to follow up with the mindsets. So I do submit that once incorporated, these mindsets will transform the way you approach challenges and opportunities in life. So I do thank you everybody for offering those questions. I think also when you think of those questions, reframe them for yourself. So you can say, I'm doing all these other things. How can I address myself? How could you reframe that in a way that could be very positive for you? So all of these things you can, whenever these negative or limiting thoughts come into your mind, grab one of the mindsets and try it out, or grab two of them and try it out. Even if it's like, okay, I'm not going to look at that as from the point of confusion. I'm going to look at that question from the point of confidence. How would I tackle it? All right, so we just finished the mindsets, and now we're going to dive into who you are right now. And I'm going to propose a few exercises. We'll give you a minute or two to jot some things down because I may spark an idea as I introduce these exercises. So please do that. We're not going to go into them deeper. We're going to send this recording out later, so you'll have access to the slides to go back into it, or you could take a screenshot if something feels like it will be a particular help to you. So this this series is going to help you discover your current self. And I just want to emphasize that, I know I said it earlier, but it's sometimes a challenge to tap into who you are right now, because we tend to think about our values when we were younger, whether it's 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 30 years ago. So it takes a little bit of discipline, a little bit of thought, and some time. So allow yourself that time. So the first exercise is writing a letter to your future self. And it really involves kind of a bit of journaling, like, current thoughts and feelings that are coming through your head, even circumstances that some of you put in the chat earlier about what you're feeling, that transition, that it's maybe a little daunting, you're not sure where to start. Recent achievements, big and small, that is informative. Challenges or areas you would like to improve upon, aspirations and goals, and offering advice and encouragement to your future self. So that, again, like, you can see, if you can step outside of yourself and see you for you, you're really good at XYZ, maybe you should pursue that. So it just, even think of what friends or bosses or colleagues have said to you about you. That might be not something naturally that you would say, but if they're saying it about you, there's some grain of truth to that. Maybe you want to explore that a little bit deeper. So I want you to be reflective about this. Think about your past and where you want to go. And I'm just going to be quiet for about 30 seconds and let you jot a few things down as you're looking at these prompts.
Lisa, one clarifying question. What are we imagining the difference is between our current self and our future self?
Well, if your current self is that you're in transition, your future self is you've landed on that life that you love. You've landed on the life that feels perfect or feels very good. You love sinking into that life. Every day you wake up, you feel really good. I mean, it's just that you've gotten to a point of contentment. You're writing a letter to your future self. So you're saying how you're feeling now. You're saying kind of where you want to get to. You're also getting in there your reflections, like, I've succeeded doing these things, because that again gives you information. Like, even though I was very successful in my job as a lawyer, none of that appeals to me at this point. But you may find elements of that job that do appeal to you. So that's why I say it does involve some quiet time to think and access some of those distinctions, or you may have said, I'm so sick of my job. I really want to leave it. And this is allowing you to perhaps pull some of those small things that you really did enjoy, whether it is a particular colleague or a particular activity or something that was kind of ancillary to the job. Like, you loved your commute. I mean, maybe you got to ride your bike to work every day, and that was the best part of your day.
And I want to just jump in and add that you don't have to be coming at this from a place of having a problem or even being in a transition. A lot of people are, but you can be completely satisfied with your life, but then realize, okay, I'm in a good spot. So now I want to focus on this, and I want to grow this new aspect of my life.
Exactly. Well said. Thank you, Jen. All right, I'm going to go into the next exercise. So this second exercise is creating a timeline of your life. So I want you to record either positive or negative events, and then do a bit of a reflection. So I gave you a sample. I just put a vertical and a horizontal timeline, whatever works best for you. It can be a windy road, whatever feels right as you're sketching. But just this example, and I'm going to read it so you can hear the reflections that are very succinct. So I'm just going to say this in the first person. I graduated college and I felt hopeful, confident, and like the world was my oyster. I felt really excited going into the world. I got married and I felt connected to a person, but I also started to feel feelings of responsibility. I took a great job as a lab assistant, but quickly realized that research was not for me. Then I became a tenured professor, which felt like I was achieving a dream and a great goal, but I felt burned out with intense pressure to publish. And so now I've scaled back. I'm just lecturing here and there, and I'm embarking on figuring out what's next for me. So if you can put those reflections in there with each of the milestones or events or, important events in your life, I'm hoping that you will start to recognize some sort of pattern. So maybe at every realization, you made a pivot that was right based on that realization, or perhaps you had that realization, but you stuck with what you were doing and it either panned out well or not well. So I want you to look back at some of these patterns. We've had somebody say when they looked at their resume recently, they saw real pattern emerge that they hadn't realized. So that's another way to do it if a resume format is better for you. But after you write those reflections for each point, you can see where you've either made there's been good decision-making points or poor decision-making points, that you've changed courses with self-knowledge, that you've been kind of too reactive with your decisions. So those are all things that could be revealed to yourself by doing this exercise. So I'm going to be quiet for about 30 seconds and let you just jot a few things down. Okay, and now I'm going to go on to the next slide, which is if those other two exercises felt more linear or logical for verbal thinkers, I do want to offer a next exercise that may resonate if you're more of a visual thinker, and this is going to allow you to access your stream of conscious thinking, which is kind of the continuous flow of thoughts and feelings in your mind. And I have a few guidelines before we get into this exercise, which is, it really is about word association and flow. So do not edit yourself. It should be the first things that come into your mind. Do not think too much about this, and just allow for the flow to happen. I like this exercise because it is very physical and graphic. It is a mind mapping exercise. So this will allow you to tap into ideas and notions that are just floating below the surface of your conscious mind. And you may find a spark that sends you in a direction that you hadn't paid attention to before, that you hadn't thought of, that just kind of came up and gave you, a little idea, a little burst of an idea. So you can take a word from one of the previous exercises that jumped out at you. You can just take a word that jumps into your head. Whatever you want to do, put that word into the center and consciously think of 4 or 5 words that relate to that first word. So I just used the example of clowns. I put magic, parties, costumes, and physical comedy around that first word. And from there, I let my ideas flow. And this is just an abbreviated one, but I would say if you can go to 4 or 5 concentric circles out of the first word, that's where you're really tapping into your unconscious mind and you're really you're unearthing some interesting things. So this is physical. I personally love mind mapping. I like to do it on a big sheet of paper or a whiteboard because I can really move my body. And so I'm circling things, I'm drawing things. There's a physicality to it that uses the mind-body connection that also can unearth some of these ideas. So, and then after you do the exercise, you can just look at everything and words will pop out for you, and they will provide a springboard to something. So if this seems like it's more your speed, dive into it. If you've never done it before, it's definitely a fun exercise to try. And I'm just going to give you a few seconds here to jot down any words that you might want to start with, or even if you want to do a quick thing. It is a very fast exercise. You really shouldn't spend more than 3 to 5 minutes doing it when you're doing it, so that you're not editing yourself, so that you're not overthinking. I don't want you to, it shouldn't be something that you're being like, oh, I can't come up with something. That's not the exercise. The exercise is whatever is flowing through your mind. Okay, I'm going to move on to just say that all of these exercises leads to some self-awareness of who you are now. It will help you get a deeper understanding of yourself. So whether that's strengths and weaknesses, interests, goals, aspirations, any of that will allow you to tap into that with more clarity.
Lisa, a question came up in the timeline exercise. Do you include big events like that we're not in control of, like war or natural disasters?
If you felt like that determined an action before, excuse me, before or after. So if you know, a big event led you to volunteer or, you know, participate in some way, include it. If it did not impact your own decision-making and your own progression, do not include it.
Thank you.
It's really a personal exercise. You're looking for patterns in what has inspired you to make decisions or not make them. And you're going to evaluate if that was good or bad, you know? So you could see patterns that you really do follow some sort of inner guide, or you could see problems that you're ignoring your inner guide. All of that is good information. Okay, so we have now covered your mindsets and who you are right now. Now we're going to do a few exercises about how to access some core convictions. So these are things also that we are going to just introduce, give you a few seconds to jot things down. You can go into them more deeply after this class. So the first one is values. I just put a few values up on the screen. There may be some that just absolutely grab you, jump out at you immediately, and you're like, okay, those are some of my values. You might just know yourself and have gone through some of these exercises before, and your values are not on there. Please jot what your personal values are. But one thing I like to do is distinguish between real lived values and values that are aspirational. So I want you to, you know, you might say altruism is a huge value of mine, yet you don't do a volunteer, you don't do anything volunteer, you don't contribute to charities, you don't, even though you think it's a value, you have not lived your life in a way that presents as a value. So it could go into the aspirational list instead of the true and lived list. I think it's helpful to have aspirational values because it shows you a direction. But try and distinguish those two things for yourself, because that will give you more personal information. There are other exercises that take longer and are more interactive to mine some of those values. And we will get into that in the coaching program. But for the sake of recognizing that you do need to tap into that, I'm showing you this list. I'm going to give you just a few seconds to do that. And if anybody has questions about the aspirational aspect of it, I can answer that too. All right, I'm going to go on to the next exercise, which is to help identify your inner guide, is identifying role models. So if you have somebody in your life that is, you like how they navigate life, how they approach life, in an attitude, the way they present themselves, somebody you admire, and identify the qualities and traits of that person that you respect most, and explore how these align or different from your own beliefs and behaviors. So this has played a huge role in my life. I have two people that I think of often in almost every interaction I have. I know that sounds extreme, but I think about them frequently. One was a friend from college. He was just a really non-judgmental person. He was just he was very smart. He's just a very approachable person. And, that made an impact on me. And then when he was in medical school, we had dinner, and I remember that feeling sitting with him. I will just never forget. It was such a tangible feeling, a feeling like I could ask any question, I could say anything. I never felt less than, I never felt that he was condescending. I never felt, I just felt just completely free to say anything I wanted. It was just such a nice thing. And he was such a thoughtful, smart, interesting person. It was just such a fun conversation. And then many years later, he wrote a very successful book, and he was giving a talk in San Francisco at a bookstore. And I went to the talk, and somebody asked what I thought was a very ridiculous question. And my friend rephrased the question in a way that made it sound like the most intelligent, thoughtful, relevant question. And then he answered it. And this person was glowing. And I just thought, if you can make everybody in your life feel that way, that is a gift. So that is something I've always really admired. And whenever I have interactions with people, I always think of how he approaches people. The second example is I did my graduate work at RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, and our whole program was run by Dutch designers. And one of them was the head of the Postal Telecom and Telegraph. So he was responsible before the Euros, designing all the money and the stamps and the post office boxes and all sorts of public structures. And there was a little bit of mischief in him. The 50 Gelder note was a sunflower, and the watermark was a bee. So you couldn't really see it unless you held it up to the light. He just was a little subversive in a lot of things he did. And he was a very serious man, a very amazing orator. But at one point he shared his personal journals with us, and they showed him seeing himself as a little gnome selling pretzels on the corner of the street. So he had this kind of alter ego that was very playful. And to me, when I think about that, I think about curiosity and I think about mischief. And to me, that sparked creativity. So all of those elements kind of come into play. And I've always said to my kids too, like, as they're thinking about how they are in the world, I say, think of somebody that you really admire. What are the traits you admire about that person? So it just, lets you identify a little bit more with these things and incorporate them into your own personality. I think it's helpful. All right. I know I gave some long stories there, but hopefully you had a chance. Hopefully that was a bit of a springboard to think about your own role models. And then I'm going to go into the third exercise, which is this helps you uncover your personal philosophy by answering some big questions. So these are big, big questions. I know they are kind of huge, and they allow you to tap into a bigger philosophical ideas that you have that are probably not part of our daily lives. So this is something that maybe you have not contemplated for years or ever, or since that philosophy course in college. But getting into these questions gives you more of a deeper insight about who you are now and what your outlook is. And this is important because these answers can help form a basis of a compass, all of these things. But I think this one in particular will allow you to know yourself better and therefore make better decisions as you move forward. It will help you calibrate your own choices because you've gotten in touch with who you are, what your values are, and what you believe. This is basically what you believe. So when you know yourself better, you can take more conscious steps forward. So you're really, when you're looking at choices, when you're looking at options, when you're choosing paths, when you're experimenting, you can always map it back to some of the answers that you developed from all of the exercises that we went through today. Jen, do we have any other questions before we go into what's next?
We have one question. How many values and traits should people be writing down? Is there a right or wrong answer?
There is not a right or wrong answer. I always say don't have too many, because if you're going to be mapping back the decisions you make going forward, you don't want to confuse yourself. So I mean, I like to stick to, honestly, 3 to 5, I think, is a good number. And you may see that some are related, so they can nest a little bit. I think that would work too.
Thank you.
So, and I also want to offer that, so today we covered everything that we said, the mindsets, the who you are right now, and accessing these core convictions. We are also going to give you a bonus, which is a workbook on mind mapping that we'll include in the follow-up email. So if there are no questions, I'm just going to go back to the design thinking process. Again, we stayed right here in who you are. That is what we covered. The other parts of the process, in terms of identifying your needs, coming up with all sorts of ways to solve that goal or that need or that problem, experimenting and evaluating, that is something that we are going to cover in this next course that we are offering, which is Path to Purpose. So this is using the design thinking process to craft your life action plan. So this is an 8-week group coaching program, and we will, the outcome is going to be, you will come out with 3 different life plans. They're 5-year plans, and action items to support those plans. And each plan has a different parameter, so you will kind of hone in on which works best for you, but that is what the outcome is going to be. And I'm going to tell you what the components of the course are. So it is an 8-week course in which you will watch teaching modules that have been recorded. You will have 75-minute group coaching calls each week, and those involve, that is the collaborative part of this whole program. So it will be the whole group, and depending upon the day, we have small breakouts, medium breakouts, the whole group. You will also be interacting with each other. There'll be group coaching and laser coaching, which is choosing one person to coach on their specific issue, but in a way that is relevant to all the participants. You will have software to facilitate the course, which will allow for weekly check-ins, journals, homework, and accountability partners. So I do really like this system, because not only are you working in a group, but you also can choose or be chosen with an accountability partner that will help keep you on track. I've done several of these courses, and one of the most helpful things for me has been the accountability partners, because you kind of commit to each other that you're going to really focus deeply on each other's issues, how they're moving forward, supporting and challenging them. They will review your work if you want, you review theirs. So it's just an even deeper connection than the collaboration we have in the group. So I'm just wondering if there's any other things to cover there. I'm going to go over each of the weeks that we're going to do. So even though some of these things are similar to what we did today, the exercises we do in the program are different. In most cases, there might be one overlap. In most cases, they're different, but you really answer the questions and go over the answers. So you're really coming up with a compass that will reveal to you who you are right now through this process and allow you to move forward, measuring everything against that, creating these life action plans, and then developing a prototyping process. These are where we kind of deviate from even the things that we did today, just generating all those ideas, creating that roadmap, those action plans, and then defining all those experiments, the types of questions you ask, the conversations you have, the experiences you try, and the discovery that comes out of that. And then we'll have a wrap-up session. So the schedule, it would start next week. We have one orientation just to understand the software before we start with the content the next day. So the orientation would be the 18th of October next week. And then the course would start on the 19th. We have a break for Thanksgiving. It's going to be every Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And on week 7, it's not going to be Thursday because that is the first day of Hanukkah. It's going to be Wednesday the 6th. So the pricing for this is $697 for the entire 8-week course. That's about less than $90 a week. We are offering, since you've been part of this masterclass, you get a $100 discount if you sign up. I think we are extending it through the weekend instead of Friday. We'll do it through the weekend. So through Sunday, is that the 15th? And
I'm not sure.
Yeah, here, sorry. Yes, through the Sunday midnight Pacific, the 15th. And there, I think Jen is putting a link in the chat, which will allow you to register and also even get some more information about the course. And I'm happy to answer any questions that people have.
Lisa, there was one question that I think is really important. It says, it seems like you're talking about the 1% of humankind who live by making choices about education, jobs, relationships. Some people just roll with the punches, right?
I don't think that's the case. I think if you have self-knowledge, you can make informed decisions at every aspect of your life. I mean, if you are in a situation where you absolutely need to make money to support your family and you have no choice, you still have choice about how you do that or what else you do in your life. I think people come out of this, they come to this when they are thinking about a vocation. They come to this when they're thinking, yes, if they've graduated from college, perhaps they have resources, or maybe not. Maybe they've done a community college. Maybe they've lived very frugally. I think understanding yourself is relevant to everyone and helps with every decision you make, no matter who you are.
And I'd like to believe that there are more choices, that we are in control of our own destiny and path more often than 1%, that we do have a choice.
It also teaches you to be a little resourceful. So, I mean, there are people who, I have a friend who works with a Hispanic population of people in law school, but a lot of the people who come up through that program, there was a kid who lived in his car his entire childhood. So, I mean, that I'm sure involved a lot of wherewithal from his standpoint. But if you're aware of choices, if you're aware of really utilizing your resources, I think it can change your life situation.
And if you're looking at things with those different mindsets, maybe you'll see that more frequently.
Right.
If there are any other questions, please go ahead and throw them into the chat. As we said, we will send out an email in the next few days to follow up by sending this recording. We'll send out the slides, the mind mapping tool, and of course the information link to Path to Purpose and the discount code. As Lisa said, we're offering that discount exclusively to masterclass attendees, you guys, and our past retreat attendees through the weekend. This page on our website's not even live yet, so you are hearing about it first here. So keep an eye out for that email to come in the next few days. If there are no further questions, we thank you so much for joining us today. If you think of something afterward, like I often do, please feel free to email us. We can both be reached at hello@encore-retreats.com. We thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing about your paths to purpose. Take care, everyone.